All right. I don't know how I did it, and it's with no actual news from the Texans themselves or anything that have made me feel better, but it's a game week. You're facing probably the best team in the NFC, the Detroit Lions, who just really put one on Green Bay in their place in bad weather. Dome team going to Green Bay, slick field to begin with, even when it's dry. You guys remember that. And Detroit looked to be firing on all cylinders. They're not the same team without Aiden Hutchinson, but they're trying like hell to get Zadarius Smith in there too. So they've got pass rushers. They've got a really good defense. I mean, that Lions defense is top 5 in a lot of metrics. And yet, just seeing DeMeco Collins makes me feel better. Let's get this stuff out of the way real quick. So first, how's Nico Collins looking, DeMeco?
Nico Collins and whether he'll be able to play soon.
Yeah, we'll continue to evaluate Nico throughout the week, see where he is.
Okay, gamesmanship, right? So Nico, gone. Will Anderson, not available for most of the last 3 quarters of that game. How's Will Anderson looking?
Yeah, we're still evaluating Will, see how he progresses throughout the week.
Okay. Absence of Nico Collins, absence of Will Anderson. A lot of people have been asking, wow, it seems kind of weird that the Texans are only 3-point underdogs to the Lions, who are playing very, very well. They are at home. The return of Nico Collins and potentially the return of Will Anderson. God, I really hope so. It's just it's a different game when Will's in there. The Jets kept a tight end in to block when Will Anderson was in there. They didn't generally keep a tight end to block when Will Anderson was out. That was one of the big differences in the second half. That line right now, I don't know if it's gonna move based on injury information. We'll probably find something out on Thursday. If you go to BetUS, if you like the Texans at -3, or if you're waiting to see it move, go to BetUS. They'll give you a 150% bonus on your first deposit, all the way up to $2,000. 125% bonuses on your second and third deposits, up to $2,000. Just use the offer code YouTube150. Got a lot of non-answers from DeMeco today, but almost in a way where it was there's a certain agitation that DeMeco doesn't typically show, and he never said he was getting sick of these offensive line questions or anything, but he used the word everybody a lot. So I didn't play all of the answers by DeMeco because a lot of them were just him reiterating that it's everybody that has to play better. But first question that we'll play here was, do you anticipate any changes with the offensive line?
We'll look at that as we continue to go throughout the week. But as of right now, again, everybody has to play better.
Yeah, okay. Everybody has to play better. Kenyon Green's going to be gone. We didn't get an update on Jarrett Patterson. I'm just hoping, knocking on wood. He got knocked. I know it doesn't matter how hard somebody gets hit. Sometimes you can't tell. There's no such thing as a small concussion. He took a pretty big clunk to the head by that defensive player. But hopefully we get to see something of Jarrett Patterson. There's no news, as I know, unless you guys point something out, that there are any trades on the horizon. Dicey trading for an offensive lineman, I'm not opposed to it at all, because I don't think you're disturbing or disrupting any kind of continuity or anything like that. This offensive line is not 5 fingers in a glove right now the way you wish and envision. So I see no disruption of chemistry or anything like that. If there's a good guard available, just go get him, Nick. Just go get him. Go get whatever. Go get a younger version of Shaq Mason, because Shaq Mason's he's not looking like the younger version of Shaq Mason right now. Titus Howard ain't moving so hot either. They're playing better in the run game than they had been. But with Kenyon growing down, how do you see it playing out with Kenyon and with Kendrick and Jarrett Patterson? It's a pointed response from DeMeco here.
Yeah, we'll see who steps up at the offensive line position. We'll see who steps up, see how we go out there and get the job done.
Yeah, we'll see who steps up. Look, Kendrick Green, as some of you have heard me say or seen me tweet, he shows fight. Like, he shows more fight and scrappiness than I think any of those other guys have all year, and he has to because he's a smaller guy. He's got short arms. He's not huge. And he had a couple bad reps versus Quinnen Williams in that game, but he also had some really good and scrappy reps. I try not to think too much sometimes scouts get locked into that world of wanting to, thinking that they got to have the prototype. Nick's not that guy. I mean, his love for Shaq Mason will tell you that. Shaq's not a tall guard at all, but he is a big guy. So my hope, barring the addition of anybody else or a swap out of the offensive line coach or the offensive coordinator, is that Jarrett Patterson can be that guy. And we saw he showed a lot of promise at center last year. I think that at guard, I think he's more of a natural born guard than Juice Scruggs is. I know some people are talking about moving Jarrett to center because he's played there before and then moving Juice Scruggs out to left guard. Juice Scruggs played left guard before. I think he's been better as a center. I think he's a natural born center. I think Jarrett Patterson can play both guard or center, but he kind of looks and moves a little bit more like a guard. He uses his arms, at least in the small sample size that I saw this year as him at left guard. I thought he was using his hands better than Kenyon Green had been. I thought he looked like he had more actual playing strength. So I'm intrigued by him. In some respects, he might be our only hope. And maybe it's as simple as that. There's a ripple effect where everything else is a little bit more cohesive if you get good, solid left guard play. Next question. As DeMeco gave like 3-4 answers before this one about how it's everybody. It's not just the offensive line. It's tight ends. It's quarterback. It's running backs. It's receivers, all of that. So I'll just play the answer to this question. Could CJ utilize his check downs better?
When I talk about everybody playing better, it's everybody. It's the quarterbacks, the tight ends, it's the receivers, our entire offense, right? Our entire defense, our special teams unit. That's where I'm at. Like, we can hone in on different spots and all those. It doesn't matter. Each position, no matter what it is, from top to the bottom, we all play better. We'll be in position to win games.
Yeah, I think the offensive line, I know that both DeMeco and Nick have kind of tried to defend the offensive line in recent weeks and say that it's too easy to fixate just on them. I think that when you talk about ripple effects, it's CJ's inability to trust the offensive line that I think has created a lot of other timing issues in the offense. And I don't think many people either inside or outside of Houston are blaming CJ specifically for it, but I do see that it's just not flowing as quickly and as easily or as smoothly out of CJ the way we know he's capable of. And I think there's times where he just not for his personal safety, he has to try to figure out whether, all right, if I'm going to step up in the pocket, but this pocket is collapsing, that, and I get strip sacked because everybody's getting driven back into me, I'm going to have to start backing up out of the pocket. And he took a sack last week that was pretty deep, and I can't remember if it was a Laramie Tunsil one or not. That's the first signs of, all right, this guy can't step up in the pocket, which he's very capable and willing to do, because he just physically can't at times. And he's still keeping his eyes downfield. We haven't seen him be like gun shy or, scatterbrained about it at all. He's keeping his eyes downfield. But I think that decision of, okay, when to check it down immediately versus when to let it extend, it's really hard for him to figure out right now because he can't trust them as a unit on any given play. I don't care how well they grade out on PFF or what. They just have a knack for one guy. Even when a guy's not, I don't know if PFF even grades this as a minus or not, but my God, I've seen some of these guys with pretty good pass blocking grades where you watch during the game and at least like 4 times they get bull rushed right back into CJ's lap. So however they do the grades, it's not good enough. The hot routes, it's more than just CJ knowing when to look for the hot routes, but the actual guys on routes themselves recognizing blitz and adjusting to it. I think there could be some more snappiness to that. So I concur with DeMeco that yes, it's everybody, but I do think it starts with the offensive line, and that goes to Chris Strausser, the offensive line coach. That goes to Bobby Slowick. They're not going to fire him this week. I don't know if that's the answer. I think it's probably rarely the answer that when you change a coordinator or you change an offensive line coach in season that it makes a difference. However, ironically enough, the Detroit Lions, when they really started taking their step forward, it was midway through the season, week 9, I believe, of 2021, when Ben Johnson was promoted to the play caller. Then that offseason, he was made the offensive coordinator. And now he, unlike some offensive coordinators, remains one of the hot coaching candidates. He's just flat out turning people down every offseason because he just wants to step into the perfect situation. And he's got a pretty good situation in Detroit right now. So, and then the Bills last year, they changed offensive coordinators a little bit past the halfway point. That was the beginning of the end for Stephon Diggs, but they did improve as an offense. So certainly not impossible. Doesn't feel really likely right now, but that's where we are. That's what I'm trying not to fixate on too much. Not because I don't believe that Bobby Slowick is to blame, but I just am tired of. They got to figure it out. They got to figure it out. They just got to figure it out. I don't know if DeMeco. I don't want to think into the offseason and wonder whether DeMeco could fire his good friend Bobby Slowick or not. But sometimes that's when you take the leap into being a truly maniacal head coach who will stop at nothing, no matter how affable you are. Sometimes you gotta kick your buddy out of the regiment for the good of the troops. Damn it. The offensive line, I believe Kim asked this question. The offensive line has been doing a better job of run blocking. Is that something you guys can fix likewise with the pass blocking?
Our guys up front, like you said, they've done a good job of blocking. They've had a lot of good pass reps too. I think everybody highlights the bad reps. Of course, that's where the focus goes. On the bad reps, we've had really good pass rush snaps, and where are we with the timing, with the progression of the routes and all those? Are we open, in the timing of the play? So all of those things matters when we do have good protection, and all of that is a factor as well.
Yeah, and I think he talks about the red zone here. I can't remember if I included the clip or not, but the run game was good until in the fourth quarter they got down into the red zone, and then all of a sudden the run blocking wasn't so hot. And there's defensive tackles firing through the A-gaps and just destroying pulling guards. UXG Freestyle says, Slowick is garbage. God, I wish I could go through a play-by-play with you to show you how bad Slowick is. Look, this is there are remedial things not going well with the offense right now. You don't have to point out to me the absence of options, quick game options, their inability to really execute on screens, all of the things that they might do to help offset the poor pass protection. They don't do those things well either. Yeah, it's not constructed like a finely tuned NFL offense right now. And some of it's on the execution, but even in the run game, which they took a long time to figure out, the way that they were handling, from the best I could tell, what their rules were on how to zone block seemed out of whack with how a lot of other teams operate and handle. And it was confusing. This is why I get frustrated is I go to my cabal of offensive line people and they're coming to me with questions that I can't answer about the way the Texans operate. Yeah. Maybe it's growing pains of a young offensive coordinator. Nico Collins will be back and that'll make things better, but it doesn't fix the core root problems. What gave you the confidence to put Stingley in one-on-one situations with Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, Stingley he's a good player, good young player. He competes. He challenges receivers down the field when the ball is up. He doesn't find himself in a position where he's panicking. Right, he's calm at the catch point, allowing him to kind of go up and defend those passes. And he's confident in himself, and that's what allows you to be a good player. Anybody you want to make plays in this league, you got to be confident, and you have to have that belief in yourself, right, that you can make those plays and you thrive on those one-on-one matchup opportunities, and Stingley has done a good job with those.
Okay, so nothing particularly interesting about that answer other than that, yeah, Stingley can match up well versus really good wide receivers. The trade deadline acquisition that I would want, opposite of like, okay, somehow they pull off an all-pro guard or something, is a cornerback who can play man and preferably play in the slot or play outside. Jeff Okudah comes back this week, and Okudah plays more on the outside, but it might free the Texans up to allow Lassiter to play in the slot, or sometimes allow them the flexibility to have Stingley travel with the best receiver more often. So and why they need that is because like Jalen Petrie can't be out there covering Devontae Adams with no safety help. It was single high coverage, but they had Kalen Bullock shaded over towards Garrett Wilson on that play to help out with Lassiter. So basically, it might as well have been a cover zero blitz, and you got Jalen Petrie out there covering Devontae Adams, and that's just not what Jalen Petrie is going to be good at. He got moved from safety to nickel linebacker because they didn't feel comfortable with him at safety. So having him play, I'm still, from the very beginning of training camp, I didn't get it. I thought there's no way. I specifically said Devontae Adams' name once when we were talking about, all right, well, because I think we were also talking about Devontae Adams getting traded for the Jets inevitably. And, okay, is Jalen Petrie going to just line up and play man, or cover zero man possibly with a guy like Devontae Adams? And I thought, I'm watching in training camp, like, hell no, of course not. No, they're not going to do that. They know that, right? They see that, right? No, they didn't see it. Or they did see it, but they thought that either Okudah or CJ Henderson or a cornerback to be named later was going to be better at it. So I don't even get mad at Petrie because that's not who he is. He's a hybrid safety / linebacker. He's not a cornerback who can play safety and can come down and play nickel linebacker. So he shouldn't be out there. He shouldn't be out there up at the line of scrimmage against Devontae Adams. So whether it's Okudah or somebody that they can trade for, I'd prefer not to be in that situation all that often again. Are you confident in the guys you have as the team approaches the trade deadline? I think it might have been Jonathan Alexander that asked this question, and I like the way he answered it because he prefaced it by saying, hey, in the past you've said that you like the guys you have and you don't need to go out and get somebody else or what have you. So are you, to paraphrase what he said, are you confident with the guys you have right now?
Yeah, my opinion is always the same on that. I mean, we're with Nick and his staff, we're always looking to make our team as good as we could possibly be, right? Do we have a heightened sense of just making a move just to make it? No, we're always looking to add to our team, add to our depth. That's something we do constantly throughout the year. So there isn't just a mad rush now at the trade deadline for us to change our approach and how we go about managing our roster. Right? Our roster management doesn't change. Right? We're always looking to upgrade.
Yeah, so look, they're looking to upgrade, and as many of you have pointed out, this seems like maybe the most agitated or annoyed DeMeco's been. I think we knew DeMeco was annoyed about losing to the Jets in New York last year, and in one of the answers that I don't think was on here because he was talking about everybody again, it was almost exactly what he had said after the Jets game last year was there are times where, look, we can talk about coaching. There's nothing we're going to do about that. The one-on-one matchups you have to win, and just like last year in New York. Now, last year, they were doing it to a lesser caliber of receiver, but they were allowing Zach Wilson to throw these 50-50 balls, and the Texans players weren't coming down with them. This year, you amp up the difficulty level because I know Aaron Rodgers isn't who he used to be, but he can still place the ball to Garrett Wilson. He can place the ball to Devontae Adams pretty damn well at times. And there were a couple times where those could have been contested. Well, at least the Garrett Wilson one was contested, the shin catch. That was like a 5% catch probability. I felt like, I think Lassiter, it looked like Lassiter was surprised that there was even a hand in his face, that somehow a human being could have actually gotten his hand up there to catch it. The other one was Jalen Petrie trying to track Garrett Wilson across, and it was just millimeters away from Jalen Petrie's hand. On kind of a throw that could have been a little bit more out in front of Garrett Wilson, but like those are the plays that they didn't come up with defensively. I would give the defense a break, except that they let up 3 touchdowns in 3 consecutive drives in the second half. And other than the kneel down there, they had 3 drives and they scored touchdowns on all of them. So it was a tale of 2 halves in that regard. Last one is losing to the 2-6 Jets, previously 2-6. They're now sitting pretty at 3-6. A wake-up call.
Yeah, for us, I feel like our guys are focused going into the game, and just because the record says one thing, I don't know. Everybody falls into the mode of just because a team's record is one thing that you're going to go in and automatically beat a team. That's not how the league works, right? You have to earn the right to win. And to earn the right to win, you have to work the right way throughout the week, and you have to make plays in the game to win, right? The Jets are a really good team, top 10 defensive unit. They got playmakers, Aaron Rodgers, Adams, Garrett. It's not like, they don't have playmakers on their team and they were just going to lay down because we showed up. That's never the case. So you go out and you earn the right to win by making the plays you're supposed to make, no matter what the record is. It doesn't matter who you play, what the record says. How well are you playing on game day?
All right, now I'm angry again because I'm just thinking back to that. Right, first of all, yes, I concur. You look at the depth chart. Like I said before the game, okay, the Jets are a 2-win football team. They played in a bunch of close games, but you look at their roster, and there's nothing about them where if you're a football player who watches football at all, so we'll exclude the offensive line. So if you're a football player who loves football and watches football, Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Quinnen Williams, Hassan freaking Reddick, McDonald, second in the league in sacks. They got players over there. So there's no part of them that should have gone into that game without being amped up for it. Not to mention that it's Thursday night football, but it's still primetime football. It's prime streaming. So it's a big deal. And the fact that the Jets gave the Texans every opportunity in that first quarter to just, if they had showed up and delivered some blows, they could have put the Jets away or damn near. But both teams did the exact same thing. You had a team drop the football intentionally. He didn't intentionally drop it before the goal line, but you dropped the damn football on your way into the end zone. You're gifted a 6-point swing right there, and you do nothing with it. It was horrendous. So yes, not showing up against the Jets in New York. You didn't even have the weather as an excuse this time. Unbelievable. Just absolutely unbelievable. One of you guys had a good question. One of you mentioned, is it AQ Shipley? I got to write that down. AQ Shipley has a good breakdown of the coaching issues. I got to start getting guests on here. So maybe I'll have AQ Shipley on. I'd like to have a couple of the other YouTube mavens who are really good at this stuff. You guys got a lot of comments, and I feel bad. I can't get to hardly any of them. I think that not taking the blame, not being accountable is a generational thing. I feel old saying that. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, CJ took accountability. I think that, even Titus Howard today, to his credit, definitely didn't agree with his post-game comment that he said they let one slip away because they got the snot beat out of them on Thursday night in the second half. That was ugly. There was no slipping away. Titus Howard today said, hey, we start doing our jobs, then people will stop talking about us. And, that's the sum total of it all. So, the account, so I just not taking blame, not being – I guess let me know who you think isn't being accountable. CJ stood up and pointed the finger at himself. So, I mean, there's also, so the accountability, I mean, every head coach in the league says it's on me. It's almost just, that's a cliche at this point. So, and I think Slowick gets up and is pretty honest, even though I'm growing more and more agitated with him. He gets up and is pretty honest about bad calls that he made or calls that he would have rather had over. And you're in a business where, you fire 50% of the squad every year. I don't know exactly. I know everybody always wants accountability. Give me accountability. Okay, but what do you do after you make somebody accountable? And who are you replacing them with? Because it's a limited resource. So I'm genuinely asking, if you could clarify exactly what the accountability is or not. Because it doesn't, not running the first two drives was a complete failure that's right. They came out gunning, didn't they? Yeah, the reason I think Slowick is a bigger problem than the O-line is because we're closer to replacing the O-line players, but DeMeco doesn't look like hell. He'll get rid of Slowick. Okay. And I think as far as the accountability goes, I think I'm torn Because as a prisoner of the moment, yeah, I want change all the time, every time. Okay, it's going backwards with Slowick. Get him the hell out of there. Is Bill Lazor, Gerard Johnson? I don't know. Ben McDaniels is one of those guys going to be better. We won't know unless DeMeco felt that way. There is the other part of me that from 35,000 feet tries to figure out, all right, how much of this could Bobby have fixed or is a direct result of Bobby? And I'm running out of satisfactory answers for both of them because you know what, Bobby, I don't worry that CJ is succumbing to other teams having film on him. I think CJ's succumbing to poor play around him and people not living up to expectations. And it is starting to affect CJ's play. But he does not look frazzled or lost. I do think that Slowick could help him out more. I also think that the simulated blitzes and everything else that defenses are starting to do really, really well are where they need to allow CJ to take that next step in his development and be a guy that starts to figure out who's got the tell, who's dropping, who isn't, who's like being genuinely in control at the line of scrimmage. And that's hard to do. I don't think most quarterbacks really get good at it until like year 4 or so. But you start talking about, I remember talking to Wade Phillips about playing Tom Brady and just how much it sucks because he knows what you're doing. He figured it out. He's seen it all. He knows what the tells are. He uses the hard count. CJ, I don't know if CJ can use a hard count because these guys jump off sides so much. They false start so much that I don't think CJ can use a hard count to diagnose the same way some of the older veteran guys can do. Okay, so he says, going back to the accountability part, he's too busy covering for the O-line and defending them. Yeah. Okay, here you are. Italo Macedo. What a great name. I'm sorry. I know I didn't pronounce that properly. I agree, Seth, maybe Tunsil, but like you said, it's a limited resource. It's just frustrating because we want to see change. I think the biggest one was, I think, probably Kenyon Green. Because, look, okay. No. So, look, I'm glad you brought this up, Italo. Can you spell it phonetically for me so I don't mess it up? Look, Kenyon Green starts the game. Quinnen Williams hits C.J. Stroud. Kenyon Green comes back out. Quinnen Williams hits C.J. Stroud. Or one of those was the swipe at the ball, at least in the strip sack. And on one of those hits, Kenyon Green gets injured. That's where I wonder with the accountability. You benched him in the previous game. You didn't have Kendrick Green play. They reportedly I've heard from two different. Reportedly, they were thinking about starting Kendrick for Thursday Night Football, and they didn't. And it didn't go with Kenyon. I thought that it went slightly better with Kendrick. He had a few glaringly bad plays, but he also had some really good plays, and I just flat out liked his ability to get after it. And he didn't have a week of practice, so I'm curious to see how either he or Jarrett Patterson looks. I don't know if they're gonna how they're gonna figure out who starts or who doesn't, but neither of those guys have had a full week of practice at left guard, knowing that they're going in as a starter. So I'm optimistic that it'll be an improvement over what was there before. Is it going to be good enough? We'll see. But that's where we are. Let's see. The power of positivity, brought to you by DeMeco Ryans, uplifting guys instead of trying to light a fire underneath them. I do think with DeMeco, there's a little bit of a difference between what he presents in press conferences and how he coaches guys. Now he's never going to be a guy to MF people up and down the field or anything. And there's plenty of, Pete Carroll, great example of a guy that doesn't operate that way and has had great success on the defensive side of the ball, especially. But he coaches guys hard, and I know guys sometimes the guys who are the toughest coaches are not yellers or screamers. It's just that they demand such attention for detail that Aziz Alshires joked about this, about how he and DeMeco kind of get in arguments because DeMeco coaches him so hard. So I'm not overly worried about it. I know it's just that the The overwhelming positivity is hard to hear when you're feeling so negative. It's like DeMeco is getting up there and telling me I'm only upset because it's my period. Okay, I know it's my period, but there's things that you were doing when it's not my period. Damn it! My wife's gonna be really curious about what I'm talking about in here. Okay, so here's the thing. It's Monday. I got to reset. I got to find reasons to dislike Dan Campbell, even though I think he might be one of my favorite human beings in the world. Aaron Glenn is the defensive coordinator for the Lions. Aaron has not gotten a lot of head coach buzz. He's interviewed a couple times. Hasn't gotten a lot of head coach buzz over the last couple seasons as much as I think he should. I think this is the year where it might really change. Because their defense, I mean, that's been a transition over the course of several years to where they've gotten to be a really respectable defense, and they're doing it without Aiden Hutchinson right now. So, selfishly, it's not like I'm going to show up wearing an Aaron Glenn jersey in Lions colors on one side and CJ Stroud on the other. But if I could so engineer it, I'd like a respectable game where the Texans win, but Aaron Glenn doesn't look like he had a bad game as a defensive coordinator. I want Aaron to get a head coaching job, and not because I want to work as a coach for him. I can't do it. I've got a lot of respect for coaches because they are really good at a lot of things that I would be awful at. Organization, attention to detail, the ability to be in the same building for 18 hours without wanting to jump out of a window. All those things. I am inept and inadequate in those. I'm a hell of a coach at clinics, though. You give me your kids for 2 hours, and I'll teach them some crap about football. Good stuff. Not the bad influence stuff. Thank you to BetUS for sponsoring the video. I'm going to sign off. Please, before you leave, could you like and subscribe so the algorithm just eats it all up? Son of a bitch algorithm. I can't tell you how excited I am to stop getting political stuff. Not even ads, just anything on my social media.